and then I'll do my sharing stuff.
Is that working? That's working.
That's working nicely. Hold on. I can quit. Hold on. Let's do.
Okay, so I'm using this mic now.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's a better sound actually.
Yeah.
Talk again.
It's
Testing
nice.
1, 2, 3. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
It's good. It's much better.
Better sound. Great, good.
Right.
It's a good investment.
It's nice. It's really good. Right. Let me do my thing. Work it out. Let me work it out.
I'll get to see Linda's house. Lovely house, by the way, Linda.
Hello, Linda.
I'm enjoying the ride.
Yes.
Let's post this everywhere.
And we're live. We're live as well.
We are live. We're flipping live.
We're live.
Therapy.
Live.
Born to
Release.
be alive.
Release me. Please release me. Let me go.
There's someone's beeping. Is that you?
Oh yeah, it's me. I'm just sharing. Release. It's me.
Oh,
It's
this
a
technical stuff.
Join
So,
us.
Susanna, you're living even closer to me now.
Oh, I'm so happy then. But you can come. You can come anytime. Imagine.
You're only like 2 hours away from me now.
2 hours?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. If you want to,
Or we could just both drive an hour and meet in the middle,
Oh yes. Oh God, you're making me jealous now. I'm jealous.
For you it's even faster because it's like 45 minutes by plane from
You see, just
It's true. And Carcassonne's got an airport that goes to.
I'm 10 minutes away from the airport. It's
exactly. So no time.
If that can be called an airport, it's slightly bigger than my house. That
Yeah, I know, but they do flights. I think is it Ryanair or EasyJet do flights?
I don't think there's EasyJet. I think it's Ryanair. It's Ireland, England, and there's a couple and Portugal, because this is how I fly to my contract in Porto, closer to Porto.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
So have you actually moved yet?
No. Look behind me. That's the shelf that used to be full with stuff. Now it's just boxes everywhere. It's Monday.
Okay.
On Monday we're moving.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so flipping proud of you.
It should be, and I'm proud of myself because I've been dealing. We don't know how much resources we have. It's incredible. But we can say that only when we've been through. And now I'm in the middle of it, and that's why I'm surprised. And I was sharing with the girls that I got some strength that just vanished. I released something, but that was for me was through prayer. And it's amazing how for days and weeks now, I'm not stressed by this. I'm so zen. I can't explain why. I've never been like this in my life, so stable and so peaceful. And
I know that feeling. I get that sometimes. Like, I should be stressed now. This should be stressing me, and I can't get stressed by it.
I can't get stressed about it. I mean, what's wrong with me?
And it's bizarre. Sometimes I catch myself. I should be stressed now. This is weird, but I guess it's all part of the journey.
I think at the stressful times as well, you go into an autopilot, don't you? And it's kind of like the job needs to be done. You just do it, and it's like you just.
That's exactly it. That's when you do it because you have no other choice. The problem starts for us when you believe we have other choice, but doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the conflict starts.
But when there are situations when you have no other choice because you have to do it, then you find all the strength. It's interesting, this part.
It is. We need to talk about that one time. Well, we can talk about it today.
We're going to talk about that one day.
No, we got everyone. We got my girlies. So today, we're live. We are live. We're live everywhere. So good morning, everybody that's watching. Good morning. Today is such a special day for us. We're really excited because today our podcast, Real Therapy, is out. It's out now. So if you go to Real Therapy after this talk, go to realtherapypodcast.com/follow and press the follow button so you can follow all of our episodes. Already up today, we've got our anxiety podcast and we've got our perception podcast, and they are brilliant. Oh, even if I say so myself, Well, I was surrounded by Addictions next week.
Next Friday.
Friday. So every Friday there will be a new episode released. So make sure you follow, and you'll get notified of all the new content that comes out. But it's so exciting because throughout this last year and a half, we've had so much good content, so much incredible content. And it was just like, what's another way to get it out there and to spread our message to as many people as we possibly can? So I've never done a podcast before, ever. And I thought, do you know what? Let's just try. Because if you don't know if you don't try. You just don't know if you don't try. So I had a BBC radio interview because I've got my first gig on Saturday for Urban Cooking after gosh knows how long. Right? It's flipping mad. And so I'm really excited about that. But I got interviewed by BBC Radio Somerset. And that was 2 days ago. So I talked about it on there. And also, not a lot of people know, but I've just been asked to be an agony aunt, me, for Pick Me Up magazine. So I'm really excited, and that will be published really soon. So in my little biog, I've got all about our therapy podcast, and just spreading the word. And anyone that's watching this, check it out, and please do share the content with anyone that you feel needs a little bit of help in these times, because we all need a little bit of help sometimes. We all do. This week, I really did, actually. I've had a week. I'll tell you about it in a minute. I think we've all had a week. But I told Susie about it last night, and she was laughing. Oh, my gosh. So today we're talking about release, and that was Kate's idea, because it was, I said new beginnings, and Kate was like, hold on a minute. We're releasing the podcast, so it should be released. I'm like, yes, it should. It should be released, because release, there's the power. That is the power that frees us. Releasing the podcast, releasing any old feelings, releasing any attachments that we've got to old problems. Release is so powerful, and we can all do it. And it makes me passionate. So this week, well, I've kind of like had a flipping stressful week. And it culminated a couple of days ago. So I've got a few problems with someone that's been living in my place. And not going into it in too much detail, but it's very awkward, the situation that I'm living in at the moment. And she's leaving in a month's time. But the situation is very awkward. And the thing is, I can cope with many things that are thrown at me. And normally I just laugh it off, and I'm just kind of like, that's yours, and you can keep that mood. You can keep that. And I kind of like, I stay in my own little bubble and surround myself with who I want to be aspired by, like that. That's how I live on a daily basis, because people's moods can bring you down. But this week, it's been quite hard, and, I've been blanked many, many, many times this week. And I've also had time of the month, because we're sharing now. We're sharing. and apparently, Susie said the other day, it was a super full moon.
It was not apparently, it was a super full moon.
Yeah, it was a super full moon, unbeknown to myself. Well. Let me tell you what happened. So I'm doing a lot, because I was doing the school run, obviously, like all of us incredible people do that do the flipping school run, coming back, doing all my work, doing all my podcast stuff so it would be ready to be released today, doing all the voiceover stuff, doing my Urban Cookie stuff so I was ready for my gigs, dealing with the situation at home, which meant I had to find someone else coming into the house to do certain bits and pieces. And long story short, editing, all of this kind of stuff that I've been doing. And then I drove to the school. This is so funny. Now I'm looking back at it, it's funny, right? But at the time I wasn't laughing. But I drove to the school, and my usual parking space, because I got there a little bit later, my parking space on the curb, of course, at school, was taken by another car. So I was like, okay, that's all right. So there's a fence that's just running along the side, but there's a dropped curve, but it's a fence, right? So I thought, okay, I'll just turn around and I'll park in front of this other car and just wait for Ethan to come out of school. So I was sitting on there, and I was speaking to my friend on the phone while I was sitting on just waiting. And all of a sudden I hear beeping, and I looked up, and the car in front is pointing over to me and going, like that, with like a scared look in her face. And I'm like, what? And I looked behind, and there was a white car, and it was stopped in the middle of the road. And out of this car was getting this old man, right? And when you, like, not that old age has anything to do with it, but he was a grumpy old man. And he came over to my car, right? And it's just me sitting in the car waiting. He came and he banged on my car 5 times really loud, right? And at this point, I've been through all this stuff, right? Because you never know what's going on in someone's life. This is a really important thing, right? Because you don't know what's going on. So I pulled down the window and he started shouting and shouting at me. And I looked at him and like normally I would deal with it very differently. Normally I'd be like, you know, it's about the approach. So normally I'd kind of like put out the fire and I'd be like, look, there's not a problem. I'm in the car. I can move. It's not a problem. But today, not today, like 2 days ago, whatever it was, right? I was sitting in the car and because he banged on my car so aggressively and then he started shouting at me. I matched him, didn't I? And I flipping shouted. Oh my God, I released. I shouted right back at him. And then he told me to shut up, right? Well, for a premenopausal, flipping, mad-lifed woman, and then this telling me to shut up, and I'm like, no. So I was like, well, I just said to him, don't you tell me to shut up. And I was like, I'm in the car. Nobody's died. We're all right. Look, I can move. Don't worry. Because he's made his electric gate to look like a fence, right? So that's what he's done. It follows the whole fence along. So I told my dad about the situation. I moved the car and he drove in. He didn't quite know what to do because I matched his flipping anger because I was like, bah! But anyway, so I parked up, I got Ethan and I just drove home. I told my dad and my dad said, that man is known for doing what he did to me. So what he does was he goes out doing, he hasn't got, I don't know if he's got family, I don't know. He obviously hasn't got kids or grandkids because he hates obviously living next to the school. But he goes out and then at school time, he comes back exactly that time and shouts at people that are parked across his drive. But his drive's not clear. Yes, it's a drop curb. Yes, I shouldn't have parked on a drop curb. I was like, sue me, put me in court, lock me up, I'm saying to him. Like this looking at me going, I was just like, no, don't do it. But it felt good, right? It felt really good. But apparently this guy does that. But he got what he gave me. Because I matched it. I matched his energy. I matched his anger. So I was like, okay. But after I kind of calmed down, I do see the funny side of it now. Because I was just like, oh my God. But all the poor mums and all the cars around, because it's a hot day and all the windows are open, they're all looking at me going like this. I was just like, oh my gosh. But anyway, long, short of the story, I released and it felt so good. It feels so good because sometimes you just need to do it, right? So today, not only are we talking about the release of our incredible podcast, but we're also talking about releasing emotions, because sometimes you just have to do it. You don't have to be rude, but you can match. You're perfectly entitled to match someone else's energy. You're allowed to do that. If someone is aggressive towards you, yes, you can be put out the fire and calming and just kind of go away. But if you feel it, you can match that energy, because you don't. There's no rules against that. You don't have to be rude. You can just match the energy, and that energy match will put that other person sometimes completely off guard because they're not used to it. They're thinking that they're going to attack you, and that you'll just take it and be scared, a quivering wreck. That's what they think most of the time, because that's what bullies do. And bullies do that at school throughout my childhood when I didn't stand up for myself. They bullied me, and I was a quivering wreck, and I hid it for many years amongst so many layers of pain. But I don't have to do that anymore because I'm flipping old enough to do what I need to do. So you're allow yourself, give yourself permission to release, and in whatever way it is. So that's my week, my lovely ladies. It is. Who can we go to? Actually, Susie, you're releasing yourself this week, aren't you?
Well, yeah. Well, you know the story that you just shared with us, it reminded me, and I shared it with you last night, very, very briefly. I was doing the masterclass in NLP, and we were having a beer. I was in Brighton, actually. So I was closer to you ladies. And so we were having a beer, and one of the students in the class, she's very much against the teacher. So, right. So we're having a beer, we're talking, and she's, you know, complaining about him and calling him names. And he's like that, and he's like that, and he's like that. And I just couldn't, I felt it building up, and I didn't know, I didn't enjoy the conversation, first of all. And second of all, I didn't find she was right in what she was saying about him. And it was of no my concern to discuss about that. And I wanted to enjoy the class. I wanted to take the most of the class, right? So it's funny because it was very spontaneous. And as you said, it came out through an emotion. And as she was saying, he's like this, is like this, is like that. And you will excuse my French. And I banged with my hand in the, but all of a sudden like that, without warning, without having said anything until then, I banged my fist on the table and I said, let's sue the son each. Let's sue him. Yeah. And then it's funny because it created a shock. And then she stopped talking about him and about that story. And everybody else was like feeling relieved, you know, about that. And we changed subject. Nobody said anything about that anymore at all. So that was very, very funny. We believe that we need to match and mirror only when we're having a therapy session, or when you want to get some positive outcome of a conversation, when we sell, it's not just like that. We can deal with people because that's what everybody's scared of, right? Conflict. And most of the people that are having hard time dealing with themselves and in their lives is because they're afraid of telling the truth, and they're afraid of conflict. So releasing this way, using matching and mirror is very useful as well when we're dealing with a conflictual situation, you know. But you need to practice a little bit, and you don't have to use the words. Well, in that particular case was kind of appropriate, I reckon.
Yeah, it
worked, but he was not against anybody that I was talking to. So see, my speech was in tune with what she was saying. So I didn't contradict her in any way, even though it was not, how to say, was not the truth. But somehow it confirmed and it stopped her. So
it's having the confidence, isn't it? It's having the confidence to turn around and just go, I don't want to put up with this anymore. I'm not going to be walked over like a rug. I'm not a flipping rug. You know, I am a person. I'm a human. Treat me how you want to be treated yourself. If you want to treat me with animosity and shout at me and belittle me in front of everyone else, then I will match that, because I'm not going to allow it.
And it's only there because you have to go to the level of the person, whatever that level is. It's lower or higher, but you need to go there for a bit, and then you kind of can take them, you know, out of that for a moment. But for me, release is also, if you want, it's part of a discipline as well. It's a process, because we are releasing all the time, and then we have so much information, we have so much stress that we take in. We have so much, so many things changing, especially these days, that you need to find out ways to take it out. And for me, it's part of the discipline. And I was sharing with you earlier with Linda before we started recording that I prayed these days. So prayer and crying, it's a way to do it. And people are afraid of negative emotions, and they are holding them in, and they're afraid to go there. And this is what I'm dealing with the most in my treatments with clients, is that they're afraid to go down into that emotion. And I always tell them, basically, this is the key, and it's very simple. It's very simple. We avoid pain and we look for pleasure. We are always built. This is how we are wired, right? This is how creatures, this is the creatures that we are. And so we are afraid of these negative emotions, but it's okay sometimes to cry. It's okay sometimes to go and kick in a pillow. It's okay to go out. I had a rock somewhere when I was living in the other house, and it was this beautiful rock construction. It's very old, 5,000 years old, some vertical rocks, and on top it's an horizontal one.
Oh, wow.
How are they called? It skips
like Stonehenge,
something like that. So I would go on top of that rock because it's on a hill surrounded by a forest and nobody hears you. And I will go there and I'm, so it's very, and with my daughter, we were running, said, let's run now. Because she was also, she had to deal with lots of anger as a youngster. And so I said, let's run in the same place. Let's run as if the worst dog was following us. And we would run until we get exhausted. And run. So we would run. And then we would take rocks and we would throw rocks at that imaginary dog. And so we would do this type of physical, I think, physical release is very important, like sport and running and laughter and crying and all these things that we don't do naturally anymore. We try to be so perfect. And, I don't want to feel anger. I do feel anger sometimes. And it's better to be aware of it and release it than to be, denying a part of myself. And I shut up now and you can go.
I love that. It feels so good though. It feels so good because in a therapy session as well, sometimes you can get your clients to shout because some people are just, they're so embedded in like having to, they're just downtrodden and like they feel like they can't. But as soon as you give them permission and they can shout and then they shout louder and then they'll shout louder and it's just releasing and it feels so good. And the whole persona just changes just in front of you. It's like they can breathe again.
That brings me this idea, because that's what I do sometimes. I ask people when they have some feeling that they don't want to talk about much. I say, make the sound. They say, what? Make the sound. What's the sound of this feeling? And they start, and then it's like, hey, they're louder, go on, So sometimes just doing that, it's a simple release, without saying words, just make the sound of that bad feeling,
Love it. Oh God, right, Kate, let's go to you, sweetness. Kate, talk to us about release. We all need to release.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking back to my childhood, and I'm sure I mentioned this before, that I was a real sulker. So for me, I couldn't release anger, so I would hold on to anger. I got angry and it just stayed inside. I wasn't even able to speak a word. I couldn't say anything. I might have been able to do the sound, as Susie said, but certainly for me, it was like, I couldn't say anything. It was just a total lockdown, total shutdown. And it got to the point where I got so scared of releasing anger or showing anger. I was scared to even go anywhere near it, because if I touched it, maybe if I opened the lid of the box, then I may never be able to control it. And I thought I could probably explode. It was like that. I thought if I touch it, if I go anywhere near it, it could just kill me. I thought that's how much anger I had stuck inside of me. And I was just so scared to go anywhere near it. And it took a lot of different going back in time and talking to lots of my younger selves and clearing up a lot of stuff for that to release. And I released it that way. I didn't need to do it or go out and shout or anything. It just got to a point where actually anger just became just normal for me. And I could just do it in the moment, and that was okay, because I went back and let the younger me release the anger instead of me needing to do it now, as it were, even though obviously it happens now in the now, because that's all there is, isn't it? But so that was it for me. It's like carrying a burden, and that when I think of these emotions and that, I see there's that younger me walking around with this massive burden on their backs, and it's just the more they take on, the more downtrodden they feel, and the less. And they feel it, eventually it becomes part of you and you don't even realize you're carrying it around. But as you know, when you're working with a client, it's like when they release some of that burden, they always feel lighter. They always say, I just feel lighter. And it's that feeling, isn't it? When you're not carrying that burden around with you everywhere you go, because it is just a total release and relief when it's gone. And just the relief, and it's not just feelings, is it? It's thoughts as well, beliefs about ourselves. Like, I am this, these labels we stick on ourselves, or other people stick on us, and we start believing them after a while, and then they limit us. And that's another way of a burden, where you can't move, you can't be so flexible, because I can't do that because I'm that sort of person, so that isn't me, and I can't do this and that. And so we start believing all these untruths about ourselves that either we've decided or someone else has decided and told us that's how we are. And so they're those sort of releases as well. And it's always, so they're always like, there's feelings and emotions, and then there's thoughts, you know, which are beliefs and these labels that we have on ourselves as well. So for me, it's always been, when I personally, my experience has been a process of releasing all these different things and finding sort of simple tools to do that. And so part of it is like feeling feelings as they happen, because they're never that bad. And there's this whole thing of they only last about 90 seconds. If you allow a feeling just to be as it is, it's about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, the only reason it keeps going is if you start thinking the same thought over and over, and then it just keeps going and going and going. But if you can release the feeling, then maybe the thought will go. Or if you can do something with the thought, then the feeling goes, because they're both linked. So there are lots of things you can do, and just release. It can just be releasing tension in your body, just knowing, where do I hold anger in my body? Where is that? You know, and so a lot of mine's in my jaw. So if I feel angry, because I go tight-lipped when I'm angry.
Yeah.
So I can't speak. My lips are trying to shut up. Don't say anything. Just keep the anger inside. So I know, for me, if I do something to release my jaw here, just focus on my jaw and actually let it go, then a lot of that tension goes, and then the anger sort of dissipates more quickly. So that's my personal experience. Some people get it in their shoulders, back of their neck here, and some people it's like a knot in their stomach, or wherever it is for you. Finding that feeling, and then focus on just releasing that, because again, by releasing it in the body, you can release it in the mind. And so many different ways. But I think it's like, I think the other thing I wanted to say about, you were both saying about your experiences today, or not today, but in the last week.
Yeah.
Like Danielle, you were like doing the matching the energy and giving as good as you got kind of thing, just in the energy. And that, like, he then had to step back a bit and say, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But he also felt heard by you doing that.
Yeah.
And the same thing, Susie, you were making that person heard, because you were banging your fist and sort of matching the energy in that way. And then she was being heard without being, you weren't actually saying anything against what she did. You actually took it to a bigger extreme. So by taking it even further extreme, she suddenly thought, oh, actually, wasn't that bad? You know, so it just diffuses everything, doesn't it? By matching the energy. And sometimes just, yeah, you're right. Yeah, let's go and do this now. And they'll go, oh, well, no, I didn't really mean that. No, they start contradicting themselves, and it diffuses everything, doesn't it? So that can be very powerful technique to just tell someone they're right.
Yeah,
you're right. It's, you know, no matter how angry they are, yeah, you're absolutely right. You're there angry with me. Yeah, you're right. I am doing that. You're right. And then what do they do then? You just agreed with them. Now there's no conflict. So so there's so many ways of releasing all these things. And so I think the key is just to being aware. The first thing is getting that awareness. Yes. And from the awareness, then you can start choosing what you do next.
Yeah. And being your authentic self at that moment. If you're feeling angry and you want to shout back, then do it. If you're feeling calm and you can just take it and you can say something to just put the fire out, then you can do that too. If you want to, I don't know, if you want to laugh, you can laugh right back at them. Or if you want to agree with them, it's just, there is so many things you can do. And everything is okay. Everything's right.
The amount of people that, when you say, when people cry, one of the first things you say is sorry. They apologize for showing their emotions, apologize for crying, saying, well, celebrate it. If that's how you feel, you want to release that, then release it. That's the way your body naturally wants to do it. Then do it and be okay with that. And the more you do it, actually, you'll find the less you do it, because it won't be built up. It won't be pent up feelings.
That's lovely. Oh, Kate, well, that's nicely put. Nicely put. Linda, talk about some release. Talk about me.
I'm going to add a caveat to this, because what I've noticed by listening to all of this is, I believe there are, referring to this kind of thing, to what is release, what is appropriate release, what is healthy release. I think there are two types of people. There are people, as Kate expressed, that where her lips won't open, and so it's being suppressed. And I agree entirely. Suppression is not appropriate. But then there are people like me who have been aggressive, always attacking. And so release to a person, for me, is not healthy. It's not appropriate for that person because it's so easy for me to be aggressive. And the person that's being aggressive to me, they're already lost. They're already a victim of something. That's why they're being aggressive. If two of us who are a victim of something that makes us aggressive get together, that just fuels the fire and hurts both of us. So because it hurts them, I'm going to be hurting them. They've already hurt me, and I'm going to be diving in and hurting them. So I think for us, for those of it, and then nobody likes you. In the end, I ruined 2 marriages. My second marriage, which went on for a long time, was, there were things wrong on both sides, but I just ruined my first marriage, that's all, by being so aggressive. And the second marriage affected my children because of my aggression and willingness to argue. So I don't think it's as simple. I think you need to know yourself a bit before you can say, yes, this is not my usual mode, so let me get it out.
It depends on the situation and the person that you're dealing with, if it's a regular occurrence. And the thing is, if you are being aggressive on a regular basis, there's a root cause of that.
Absolutely. And there's a deeper release has to happen.
That's right.
Yes. So yes, it requires release, but it requires personal release.
Yes.
Not just venting it on those others that also need to vent. Because obviously you wouldn't. Well, you might do. You see, if you're used to being aggressive, if that's your usual response, then actually you will be aggressive with people who are afraid of confrontation. You can be aggressive with somebody that just speaks to you normally.
Yeah, but I think these are 2 different things. Like they're 2 different subjects. We're not talking about being aggressive. We're talking about releasing. So it's good, but it's good you bring this subject because we want to make it clear, because it's not clear for everybody. Releasing is not necessarily being violent and aggressive all the time or with everybody. It's finding ways to channel this anger in a more healthy way. For instance, like through laughter or running or boxing. Or I bought my daughter a boxing bag because she was having this, struggling with anger. So this is a good way to release. And she learned it, and she said, "I'm angry now." I said, "Go punch the bag." And she went,
Like, it shows up in so many different ways: fear and anger and sadness, rage, all of these different emotions, being annoyed, all of these different emotions need to be released. And if you can find the root cause, the underlying reason why you're feeling these feelings, and you can address them, that's a personal, exactly what you were saying, it's a personal release. And that's so important, because you can't release someone else's anger. That's theirs to release. You can't help them unless they want help.
I guess the thing is what's generating it, isn't it? Because if it's something that happened when you were 3 and you're stuck with it, then you need to go back and release that there. I mean, it's no point just releasing it now in the moment, because you're just going to keep offloading and taking it out on everybody. because you haven't released it back there. But if it's something happening right now, then you can maybe do more of the matching mirroring, but it depends on what you want. And as Linda says, is it healthy? What you're doing, is it healthy for you? Is it healthy for the other person? And if you believe it's healthy, then that's okay. If it's not, if someone's getting harmed by it, you or the other, then that's not right. Then there's something you have to do to deal with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And of course, I don't have the so in conflict, I have not been used to. Of course, I'm very different now. If you speak to my friends now or my clients now, they'll say, "Oh, I can't believe that. I can't believe that." But they didn't know me then. So I have done a lot of deep personal releasing so that I can still be triggered, but even when triggered, I'm not as bad as I used to be. But I didn't want people listening who are already angry people.
No.
I didn't want them thinking, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay for me to do this. It's their fault," because that does not help us.
Absolutely. That's the thing. It's very separate. It's like, Susie, like what you're saying, it's almost like two separate kind of releases, isn't it? It's like, there's releasing in the moment, matching and mirroring someone that's being aggressive for no reason. Well, for a reason that isn't needed, that aggression, because, there's different ways you can deal with it. And there's another kind of release, which is releasing your own insecurities and fears and problems. So, I think they are very well defined, but they are very different. And by releasing the old baggage, it's heavy. You're holding it all the time, and why would you want to? You can go back and just look at that situation again through your eyes and put down that old baggage, put it to rest and be free. It's a wonderful thing. And that's what NLP can do. That's what NLP does when you're ready for it.
Well, to my eyes, the whole life is a releasing process. I think that's what we're here to do at a deeper level. And so what happens is that once you do like what Kate says, and you go back in there, and then you go. I went and I had a talk with the embryo me. Because I resisted abortion.
Wow.
So I lived for a long time with the idea that the universe didn't want me, and that the life was against me. And then so I went and I had a talk with the baby, and then by having this talk with the baby, with the embryo, I tried to get right before the intervention was attempted, and so I understood that actually life and the universe did everything actually to keep me despite that. So I came out very empowered from this conversation. So the whole life is a process of release. But what happens when you start to be lighter and lighter, like Kate says, you really feel lighter, then you can afford this luxury of spontaneity, and spontaneity happens. And then you are reacting according to what is, and not because of your emotional charges. So when you are more pure, then you can act spontaneously according to what the other person does, as if you were the therapist, because this is what we do. We put ourselves and we train ourselves to put into this state of spontaneity where we can really be listening. Well, when we're out of the therapy session, we're not in that mode all the time, right? But so the more we go into this discipline, and the more we understand the importance of release through eating good food and doing fasting once in a while, and having practices that help release regularly, like going regularly to my stone and that allows for this more fluidity of emotion, and then you can be spontaneous in your interactions. You don't have to go into, but why did you call me that way? No.
Yeah,
you can just say something on the same tone, but something that is smart and clicks, because this is the real intelligence. We are more intelligent than we can imagine. We're 8 billion, almost 8 billion people on planet. Imagine we're all connected. We have 8 billion possibilities of being, of thinking, of, so including the higher levels of beings, whatever they are, so we can tune into something greater, but that is possible when we release, when we get purer and purer in terms of emotions and luggage that we carry.
Absolutely. And releasing leads to space, and space allows things to come in then, because when you haven't got the space, you're never going to attract what you really want because it's so full up with stuff. And you can let it go and release it, because sometimes that can be very hard. That process can be very hard if you're not ready to release something. You have to be at that point where you're ready to say, that's enough. And when you're at that point and you do release it, you're then at that point where you can welcome in what you really want, what you're visualizing, what you want to see in your own world, what you really want to see in your own world.
Yeah, for me, I see it is like I call it freedom, because that's the feeling to me. The feeling is freedom. And it's kind of like the opposite of control, because I had this whole thing, like in my past, was all about trying to control everything, control my feelings, keep a lid on everything, control myself, be very disciplined, very, very sort of driven person, driven to achieve and impress my mother from like way back, even long after she was dead. I was still trying to impress her, this sort of whole thing going on. And so for me, there was like this freedom for me was not needing to control anymore, because I didn't need to control my feelings, because they could just be, and I was letting them be, because I wasn't, like Suzanne was saying, I wasn't being driven by the past me anymore. I was just being me in the moment, and then I could just be more me there. And then there's that space. The other thing about freedom is you have that space. And so that feeling of freedom for me is a complete peace mixed with absolute joy. There are these two, and it's weird because you'd think joy wouldn't be peaceful, but this is a peaceful but very alive joy. And so it's like the peace is, I think, is my mind, where it just is clear and open and available for whatever wants to come in. I have that space in my mind, and it's just a very peaceful place, because I'm not being driven by those old voices that have no place in my life anymore. And then the other part of me is this just joyful aliveness, which I think is like just energy in my body, because all those old blocks that I used to have, that I was holding on to tension in different places in my body from different old thoughts and feelings and beliefs and all that stuff, once they were released, then that energy can just flow, and that's the aliveness. So, and that's what I see, and that's the aim that I have for every one of my clients, is to tune into that feeling, because I think once you felt it, or even touched it, or even seen it and believed it, it's available, because it's there inside all of us. We all have that feeling. It's just there, and it is just taking these layers off, as we've been said, and I call it peeling the onion. We're just taking layer after layer. And you can, depends how far you want to go, how many layers, because there's always another one. So depends how they just get finer and finer and finer as you get, as Susanna was saying, more and more pure. These layers get smaller and smaller, because there's always another one. So it depends how deep you want to go. But once you felt that feeling and you're in touch with it, even just for a microsecond, then the belief is there. The belief is there that, yes, I can touch that place. I can be in that place, because that place is me. That's the real me inside. And once you felt it once, I think then it gets easier and easier to go back to it. And eventually you can kind of dwell there. And that could be your default, instead of the me sulky kid default, and blaming the world for all my problems because it's your fault, because I'm feeling this way. Well, no, this is me. I'm taking responsibility, and then getting in touch with that freer, that warm, light place that is really me. And that's real freedom to me, is that releasing, because it's a lifelong process, as we say. I'm peeling the onion every week, all the time, learning more and more, and I love it. And I just so passionate about getting that message out to everyone else as well, that we can all do this. We've all done it. That's why we do this, because we're so inspired by this work that we want to help others do it too, because you all need to know this stuff. It's there, and you can do it. You can do it. Yeah.
Yes, there are alternatives, and I'm going to mention Kate's course again. Selfish Freedom is the latest in helping me to release these things, and one of the techniques she teaches if you're stuck with the feeling, if it's still with you, and well, you don't need to wait, but if a minute's gone by, 90 seconds gone by, and it's still there, then she's taught us a technique that will get it out in the next 90 minutes. And it absolutely works, absolutely works. And then I've experienced, so because life continues, you can walk out of your NLP session and something happens and something else is getting set up that's unhelpful, that makes you unresourceful. So we do need these ways of continuing to release. And I've experienced some wonderful confrontations where I was coming from that place that Susie is talking about. I was coming from that clear place. As it happened, the one I remember the most is where I had just been not my best self in Cafe Nero and was waiting to go to the optician, having a cup of tea and a bar of chocolate. And I really didn't like how I'd been in there. And so I'd been triggered and I didn't like it. So I went with my tea and chocolate and sat down to think about what I'd done. And I had that wonderful opportunity of being, sending myself to my room and just think about what you've done. And I thought, why? What was happening there? And all I did was see which is step one of, that's all I needed was step one of the thing that Kate taught us, which was what was my feeling? What was happening? Why was I triggered? What was triggered? And I was being thwarted. That was it. And actually, that is my big thing that I need to release now. But having done that then and let go of that for Cafe Nero, when I went into the optician, and the optician was damned awkward. He was a young man and he was really awkward and obstructive. I was like Mother Teresa. I was not triggered whatsoever. And what was significant was everything. I had time to think. I had time to consider what will be and find what the 8 billion, I could connect with the 8 billion choices that Susie spoke of. What is the best thing to say here for me to have what I want?
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I had what I wanted, and I saw what was triggering him as well, because I did not confront him. I was not like a brick wall to him, or a fist even, which is what I probably would have been like before. I was just a cushion.
Yeah.
And it was so lovely. There was space, there was time. It was lovely. And I want more of that. I want to be that resourceful person that can bring the conflict to the right conclusion. That's who I want to be.
You already are, though. You already are that person.
Not always.
It's different facets of yourself, isn't it? It's different facets. It's like isn't the NLP phrase, your map of the world isn't the territory. Your map.
The map is not the territory. Yes, that's
the territory, because everyone's seeing their own versions of the world through their own eyes.
And I'm not denying that sometimes you need to be assertive. Sometimes someone is being inappropriate and you need to stop them. If you come across somebody bullying a child, or bullying anybody really for that matter, you need to be assertive and be able to step in and draw and defend the boundary that the victim is not able to defend. So you do, but in a way that you are clear, so that you are not controlled, in a way that you are clear, so that you can bring it about in the best way.
Yeah.
That reminds me when Ethan was at a party once when he was young, and he was, I can't remember if it was another kid was bullying another kid on a smaller kid. Another kid was bullying him, and I'd seen him do the same thing to Ethan, but Ethan had, because he was bigger, he diffused the situation really quite well. This is when he was really young, but I saw this kid doing it to another boy who couldn't diffuse the situation. So because I knew of this pattern that this kid was doing, I went over to him, I went down to his level, I crouched down and I looked him straight in the eyes, and I explained to him very clearly that what he was doing wasn't right, and that, you know, that some people would find that, you know, he was practically kicking the kid, you know, and I was very firm, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but it came in the moment. It came in the moment, and I told him exactly what he thought, and his whole face just changed, and he actually went off to the side, and he just sat out for about 5 minutes, and he was thinking about it. He was thinking, because it was like no one had ever told him not to do it before. And I was just like, he's like 4 or 5 years old, and just like, this kid's allowed. He's been allowed to do what he's doing, and it's not okay. It's not okay. So someone had to tell him that, and I think it really does start that young. It just does. It does start that young.
Yeah.
That's also in the body. You know me. Like I have to bring my Ayurveda pill in.
Please do.
It's also in the body. I mean, this is what I was talking yesterday to a client on Skype conversation, because she's been struggling all her life with anxiety, for instance, and then this fear to speak out, and this idea of weakness and being fragile and anxious about everything in life. So I was explaining to her that also comes with the body. So I said, if you hate this part of yourself, literally you hate your body. There are some bodies that feel more anxiety. There are bodies that express more anger. For you, Linda, you are a Pitta, you're a fire person to me.
Yes.
So it's normal. It's obvious that, that it's there. It's not just in what happened in the past. It's not just, sometimes it's just in the matter itself. The body itself is more acidic, and this is what it is. So that brings a bit more kindness towards how you're looking at certain aspects of yourself. Just for those listening, and they relate to what Linda said. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Fire can be balanced through many ways, through food, and I'm starting again, Ayurvedic treatments. But it's true that you get to master more of these elements in your body, and then the anger gets to be more mastered, and then you have more freedom to respond in a different way. But there was another thing I wanted to say. There was another example I wanted to give you, but it's skipped my mind. But anyway, it will come back. If I remember, I'll tell you.
It will.
I was just struck by something you said then about weakness, and we see these feelings as weaknesses when we express them sometimes. Like sadness especially is a big one. When people crying, they see that as weak, because they were told to cry, don't be a baby, all these sort of things, and yet it's just a feeling, it's just an emotion. It's the way your body does feelings. Like crying, it tends to be my way of expressing all my emotions, even anger. I tend to feel tears with it, whereas other people get all their emotions come as angry, because that's how that was acceptable, or it was encouraged maybe in their family. I've had people I know that, that's how we did everything. Everything was angry. Everything was an argument, a shouting match. That's how we grew up. That's how people got their way, so that was the acceptable emotion to show. And so they just learn anger. So it wasn't even anything to do with any past pain. It was just, this was the way we were taught to be. And so that becomes your default way of being. And so there's that too. There's like these learned behaviors. And there's like, if it's seen as weakness to cry, then you're not going to cry. You're probably going to show your sadness with anger or some other way of showing it. And so it's about also saying that all these are just feelings. They're messages, and they're telling you something. There's something that you need to act and do something. There's a boundary you need to say and establish and say, no, this is me, and you've gone past that boundary, so now I need to express that to you. Or it's a need that's not being met, that you need to ask for, maybe to somebody. You need to ask for something, or it is something that's back in the past that you need to release from back there. So again, it comes back to awareness, and also not seeing these feelings as bad, because they just are, and they're there for a reason, and the more aware you become of why is it there, where's it from, then you can maybe start to play around with it and be a bit, and it can be playful. I mean, it doesn't have to be so serious sometimes, you know, you can be more fun as well, you know, say, this is okay, this is my freak flag, I tend to cry when I'm angry, this is me, you know, so okay, just knowing that, and then you can say, okay, well, now what's happening here? And then Linda was saying about this process that I talk about in my course, which is just letting it kind of be and investigate it. What is it? And give it a score out of 10. What is it? How much am I feeling out of 10 now? Is it an 8? Is it a 5? Or is it a 3? And then you can go through a process, and at the end you score it again and say, well, oh, now it's only a 2 and it was a 5. And so you're starting to see it diminish, and you're realizing that actually it's always changing. It's never the same. I'm not an angry person. I'm feeling anger now, but I'm not angry. That's not me. It's just a feeling. And what does that feeling mean? And what's it got to say? You know, if it was an animal, what would it be? And you can play with it in all sorts of ways, and and then let that diminish, as Linda was saying, just let it go and release it, let it flow through you, because it's got a message. What does it want to say? And then let it go, rather than holding on or making it bad. I think as soon as you make it bad or something wrong about you, then you're kind of making it even stronger. You're giving it strength and power over you. Whereas really it's just an energy that's moving through you, and just let it move and let it give you its message and let it go. And that's the key. And then I think once you've got that, that's freedom to me, when being able to just feel your feelings as they are and let them go. And if you need to express them, do it in a way that is in a controlled way. You're not hurting anybody, and you're not hurting yourself either.
I think that's just beautifully put. So on that note, we've done an hour again. That was just brilliant. It goes like 5 minutes, our talks. It really does. It really does. So on that note, I invite everyone to go and check out our new release. See what I did there? Check out our new release. It is absolutely it's just so exciting. It's so exciting that it's a new platform. Share it. So if you head over now to realtherapypodcast.com/follow, and follow us on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform it is that you're watching on or listening on. Just let us know. And yeah, enjoy, because this is what this weekend, I just invite you to release this weekend. Release, go out for a walk. Release, go for a run. Release, sing. I'm going to sing. Release, come to my gig. Release, and just let it all go. I wish you guys could come to my gig, I tell you.
I wish we could.
Oh, one day, right? One day it will happen.
One day we will.
Magic day. And on that note, I'm wishing everyone the most wonderful weekend. Listen. realtherapypodcast.com/follow and share. And on that note, I'm going to say au revoir. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.